This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And to check out what's on at the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is Dr. Joel Graves, and we're going to be talking to Dr. Graves about everything from aliens, God, and the Bible. His website is www.aliensgodbible.com. And Dr. Graves, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a bit about yourself, sir.
Boy, that's a big story. I better get it into a small bite. I grew up in California on a small ranch, and went into the Army went into the Air Force, actually, and then went into the Army. That's a long story. And when I got out, I went to seminary and became a hospice chaplain and then a Anglican priest. And retired 5 years ago.
And where did the interest in aliens come in?
You know, I was a late reader. I didn't learn how to read till I was in the third grade, and my dad got me a book about Starship Troopers, for kids that are 8 years old. And I absolutely devoured that book, and then I couldn't get my hands off anything having to do with science fiction. Yeah, aliens just kind of came along from that.
Now, I understand you've written a couple of books. Tell us about them.
Well, I wrote Gathering Over Jerusalem. I think that was published in 2003, and it was a book about the end times. And the premise of that book was that I believe Jesus will be coming back in the second coming around the year 2037. I mentioned that also in this book because, I talk about a lot of different things, and it's like, oh, that's nice, and that's nice. But when you say the year 2037, that's not that far off. And the Bible gives us some dates. I don't know the day or the hour. The Bible says nobody can actually know that. Wouldn't help anyhow. But if you think that all of these things are culminating in this huge event 20 years from now, then all of a sudden it's more interesting and compelling.
Are we in the end days that are depicted in the book of Revelation?
Absolutely. And, the fact that the world is in so much turmoil right now is a good example of that. Jesus told his followers, he said, he gave them some clues about they asked him a point-blank question, when are you coming back?
Right.
And he said, when the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, the generation that sees that will not pass away. And he said Jerusalem would finally be in Jewish hands. Now, you know what? People have been talking about Jesus coming back for a long time, but Jerusalem was not in Jewish hands until the Six-Day War. And, the length of a generation in the Bible is 70 years. And so if you add 70 to 1967, you come up with 2037. He said, the generation that saw that happen, Jerusalem in Jewish hands, the Jews will never give up Jerusalem. The Palestinians are wasting their time. They know that. It's very powerful. It's the main prophecy of the end times that tells us we are the generation that's going to see this.
Could it just be coincidence?
Well, who had Jerusalem when Jesus was here?
I don't know.
The Romans. Remember Pontius Pilate?
Mm-hmm.
The Jews have not had Jerusalem for 2,000 years. It only just happened, and the prophet Ezekiel talked about them becoming a nation again, and in his talk about the end times. And all these things are culminating, coming to a head like never before in history.
Interesting topic, and you and I have to take our break. We'll be right back. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Joel Graves. His website is www.aliensgodbible.com, and we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, if you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and to get a listing of all our programming and the other great shows that we have here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Explanation, Dr. Joel Graves is our special guest this hour, www.aliensgodbible.com. Tell us about the starship. You start off the book by describing a great starship found in the book of Revelation. Tell us about that.
You know, this is one of those things that excites me. You know, when you write a book like Aliens, God, and the Bible, you say it sounds science fiction-like, and you know what? There are places in the Bible like Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation where that's exactly what it is. John says this thing coming down out of heaven is cube-shaped. You know, and it was written 2,000 years ago, so this whole idea of the Borg ship being a cube is not new. It's in the Bible. The Borg ship was 2 miles on a side, 2 miles tall, 2 miles wide. The New Jerusalem is the name of this ship coming into orbit, is 1,380 miles on one side. in a cube shape. Now, to give you a perspective, that's the distance from Augusta, Maine to Miami, Florida. I'm in Seattle, so it's the distance from Seattle down to the tip of Baja, California, or New York to Denver. This thing is a monster. If it was parked on the United States, it would cover most of the country. Another thing I think that's absolutely amazing about it is that John said it's the color of jasper, which is a pink, but it's clear. The only thing that could be is pink diamond. And as I was doing research for this book, I came across nanothreads. The strongest, hardest thing ever made in the whole world is pink diamond nanothreads. Mm-hmm. Okay? They're absolutely amazing. They can be manipulated. You could make things with them. You could give them an electrical charge and open up a port or a hallway or a conduit or a hatch. The skin of the ship, if it's pink diamond nanothreads, would be self-healing. If a meteorite hit it, it would be able to put itself back together so it looked like new all the time. And the angel told John, the Apostle John, he said, the walls of this city are only 208 feet thick. And if you have pink diamond nanothreads, even though this ship is almost the size of our moon, mm-hmm. It only has walls 200 feet thick, 208. Isn't that crazy?
Well, yes and no, because the skin of the Apollo spacecraft that went to the moon, was less than an inch thick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They used titanium. And
So tell me, the starship in your book, is it science fiction? Is it a novel? Or is it fact?
Well, John says, this is what I saw. Mm-hmm. It's coming into orbit around Earth, and he describes it for us. He says it's coming at the end of a great war, and although the ship might have many different uses, mm-hmm. which I talk about, could be a battle cruiser, could be an ark, could be a cruise ship. When it first gets here, it's a lifeboat. Because I told you, Jesus comes back in 2037, or right around there, right in that neighborhood. There's a few mitigating circumstances that might push that out a year or two. Mm-hmm. But then begins the 1,000-year reign. And at the end of the 1,000-year reign, there's a great war, and the earth is destroyed. And then the starship arrives. And it seems to me that whatever other purpose it might have in God's plan for the universe, when it first gets here, it's a lifeboat. And the remnant of people who are left on the earth are going to go up into that thing. And the Bible tells us that God will remake the earth and the atmosphere around the earth right after that ship arrives. So I think it's a real deal.
But this is based on your belief of the Bible and your belief as a Christian. But what about the other religious philosophies that are out there who don't share your same religious values and the same way that you look at these religious philosophies as you do?
Okay, well, first off, I'm just describing what John described himself. John said, "This is what I saw."
Did he see it? Did he see it, or was it a dream?
Well, he had a vision. And he says he had an escort. This angel mm-hmm. escorted him through this process and helped him describe things. He coached him in some areas. And he said, this is what I saw, mm-hmm. and this is what it did. And whether you're a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian, you can read it the same way I read it. He says that it's the color of jasper, but it's clear. That has to be a diamond. It has 12 levels. Each level is 115 miles high.
It could be something else besides a pink diamond, because it could be something that isn't found on this planet.
Oh, it's true.
There are so many variables in this entire scenario. It's just like we know for a fact that the Bible has been re-edited and re-edited and re-edited. Parts were taken out, parts were stayed in, the Council of Nicaea and the rest of the history of the Bible. Bible is a great book. Don't take me wrong. But it was written by people who did not have the present-day smarts that we have now. And wait a second, sir, wait a second. Many scholars that I've had on the show, biblical scholars, agree on one thing, that if the events of the Bible happened today, the Bible would not be written in the same terms as it is now.
What we have in the Bible is continuity of thought and purpose. The Apostle Peter wrote in his second letter that the way we have the Bible is that the Holy Spirit moved people to write down the things that God wanted to appear in that book. And that it wasn't just the will of man or the imagination of people or, something that was culturally relevant one time and not at another time. There's a continuity of thought and purpose that runs through the whole thing, although it's had many authors, although it's been edited. And, the different councils weighed in on it. And, if you're going to, I talk about this also, there's a point in time where you have to say, I'm going to believe this, okay?
Or you're not.
And or take it on faith, or you don't believe any of it.
My question is, if this was so important to God, why didn't he write it himself?
Same reason he doesn't appear at the mall.
Well, what's that?
The same reason he doesn't appear at the mall.
Why?
He could be 5,000 feet tall and appear there, or 500 feet tall and say, I'm God, worship me. And
well, he's done that throughout history. If you didn't worship him, he killed you.
Well, that's not true.
Whoa, wait a sec. It's not true?
No,
what about Sodom and Gomorrah? What about the Egyptians? Now, if God is the creator of all, and we're all his children, man, I'm glad I'm not like God, because I would never think of harming my child or anybody else's child. And yet God, because you didn't revere him, because you didn't do things his way, he killed you. Am I right or wrong?
Well, you're wrong.
Well, tell me how I'm wrong then, sir.
I will. Okay, so I was talking about why God doesn't appear at the mall. From the very beginning, there have been rules about how God reveals himself and how God interacts with this world and with people in particular. And so we can't completely understand what God's doing all the time in order to get the outcome and go in the direction that we need to go. God wanted the Pharaoh to let the children of Israel go. And he kept refusing, and he started to agree, then he didn't agree, and the plagues came down on him, and all kinds of horrible things happened. The result was they left. And
so it was blackmail. He was bullied into letting the people go.
Well, there was a purpose for it, and the purpose was so that God would show himself, his glory to the Israelite people through those events in Egypt. And they still celebrate that at Passover.
Yeah, I understand that. But still, why was God so favorable to the Israelites and not to the rest of humanity? Doesn't sound like a fair deal to me. It doesn't sound like a father image that I would ever want to take. And as a former police officer, I look at that and say, God should have been put in jail for child abuse. Homicide. But we can't say that because it's God. Oh, that's a bunch of crap. You can't write rules.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. The story, it's like, okay, I talk about this story in my book. The story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac.
Yep.
Okay. That was something practiced by the pagans in that time period. It wasn't, that was looked down upon by people. Child sacrifices happened all over the world at different times, different places. And God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham knew that Isaac was the promised child. God told him this, from your child will come this great nation of Israel. And he obeyed God and went up there to slay his son. And God stops him on Mount Moriah. And we only learn later that Mount Moriah was Mount Calvary. Okay, it was Golgotha. And that it was a type and shadow of God's Son, Jesus, being sacrificed for the sins of the whole world. And, on its own merit, that story's horrific. And you'd say, well, God's crazy. This doesn't make any sense. But in the long-term scheme of things, you see that Abraham had said God himself will provide a sacrifice, and God did that 2,000 years later. So what I'm saying is that in the moment, something might not make sense. In the moment, something we'll question it and say, I'm an evolved, modern human being and intelligent, and what's going on with this? Why is there disparity? Why is the God in the Old Testament destroying Sodom and Gomorrah? And then we get to Jesus and he says God is love, and where do those two come together? And anyway, they come together in Jesus.
We've got to take a news break. When I come back, I want to get away from the God aspect, and I want to talk about aliens. I don't want to talk about the Bible. I don't want to talk about the book of Revelation. I don't want to talk about Jesus. I don't want to talk about, who, what, when, where, why the Bible, because it's a matter of belief, whether you want to believe it or not.
Okay.
And I don't want my listeners to think that I'm saying, all right, this is how you should believe, this is how you shouldn't believe. They have, according to the Bible, free will. So let them have their free will. X-Zone will be back on the other side of this break with the news as we continue right here on the X-Zone Radio Show, heard around the world on iHeartRadio, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and a whole bunch of satellite providing companies. And we'll be back. So whatever you do, don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Joel Graves is our guest. His website is www.aliensgodbible.com. So, am I to understand from the title of your book that you believe that aliens are real and they have been on this planet and they are on this planet and we are descendants of the aliens?
That's right. In my book, I make I present the option that Adam and Eve were in the garden a long, long time. There's evidence of that in the scriptures. And I present evidence in the rocks. We've got multiple examples of humans being present millions of years ago. Mm-hmm. They've cracked open the shale and they found human footprints alongside dinosaur footprints. And the shale has been dated at 400 million years old.
But if my memory serves me correct, reading that same research, they also say it was a hominid, something that walked upright. I don't think the word human was used.
I've got pictures. It's a human footprint. It looks just like my footprint today. It doesn't look like a footprint of an
ape.
It doesn't look like the footprint of an ape at all. It has a toe like ours and 4 little toes right alongside it. One of them is a footprint of a child, and the toes are spreading like you get when a child is barefoot since birth. When they run around barefoot all the time. And one of these, they found the person was wearing a sandal and stepped on a trilobite. Okay, so it's not some ape ancestor hominid. This is a person wearing sandals 400 million years ago. And there's many examples, and there are controversial examples, but there's many examples of things being found in coal deposits like bells and pots that have somehow fallen into the plant matter that turns into coal. It's all of those are dated at 300 million years and beyond, and it goes on and on and on. If you Google strange things found in coal, there's a whole plethora of.
Hey, listen. My opinion of the internet, it's the largest septic tank that has ever been created because there's more crap in it than there is anything that is credible.
Okay, so my point is that Adam and Eve were in the garden a long, 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 long time. And they had kids. One of Eve's punishments was to have pain in childbirth. That meant she had kids without pain. And I believe that's where the space aliens come from, that they are from the garden, and they're able to move between the physical and the spiritual world themselves and their aircraft and their spacecraft. I think the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull was working off that premise. The guy said they lived in the space between universes.
All right, so where is the spaceship now?
Well, I believe it's a whole society. The aliens with their, MUFON. If you go to the MUFON website.
Oh, MUFON, yeah. Okay.
I think there's a UFO sighting every day somewhere in the world.
And you're talking about an organization that has been cited for racism and discrimination lately.
I saw that article on your website.
Yeah. So MUFON carries no weight. No weight whatsoever. Because we had a guy on from MUFON who was telling us that he was a gunner on a starship that was docked on the other side of Pluto. So.
Okay. I don't care about MUFON. What I am saying is that, I'm just saying they report these things. There are sightings around the world all the time of objects we can't identify. Yeah. And I believe it's these aliens, that they're our relatives. I believe that they're closely related to us, cousins.
So you don't believe
if they have the remains of aliens, like from the crash at Roswell.
Oh no! Don't tell me you actually believe that crap.
I didn't say I believed it.
So why would you use that as a reference?
If they have alien remains someplace, that they should do a DNA test, and you'll find that we probably are related.
Why do you think? So I would imagine that you believe that there's a government conspiracy suppressing the information and the existence of extraterrestrials.
No, I didn't say that.
So
I don't believe that.
You don't believe that the government has extraterrestrials, or some agency has extraterrestrials? Why else would you bring up a DNA?
I'm just saying, if they have living or dead aliens, somewhere, if they land in the White House lawn, I don't know. Mm-hmm. If they have the ability to get that DNA, they'll find that we are cousins, that we're related by haplotype to a common mother.
Now you say they would find. You say that with certainty.
I do, and I say that with certainty because I think Sasquatch is in the same category. That this creature, the big hairy guy, that's been reported all around the world forever. They have done samples of hair samples with skin follicles, and they came up with the same conclusion that the Sasquatch is closely related to us the same way.
I have never seen that. And
it's in the book.
In
yeah,
what
talk
book?
about the book. With,
in your book, but I've never seen it by any credible researcher that investigates Sasquatch. I've never heard that from Lauren Coleman. I've never heard it from anyone else, that there has been definitive findings from hair and skin that connects Sasquatch to humans. I've never heard that. And I've been doing this show for 26 years.
Yeah, I think and that's why you're not going to find archaeological evidence of them. They move back and forth between the spiritual world the way we go from the living room to the kitchen.
All right, if I'm not going to find it in peer-reviewed material, if I'm not going to find it in scientific papers, if I'm not going to find it in any publication from a university press, why would I believe you? Why would our listeners believe you?
I'm looking at it's called the Sasquatch Genome Project.
No, answer my question. Come on, I've gone past that.
Well,
I've gone
I'm trying
past
to
that.
answer. I'm trying to answer. Have you heard of the Sasquatch Genome Project?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, they did double-blind studies of the hair follicles.
Sir, my question to you was, if I have not read any of the information that you're telling us about Bigfoot or any other thing that we've talked about tonight in a peer review paper, a scientific paper, but all you've given me for references are the references that you have quoted from the Bible. And the Bible is a philosophical book. It's real to you because you believe it. And I'm not taking anything away from your belief. I think belief is wonderful. But when fact comes to fiction, man, the Bible's right up there with the #1 bestseller in the New York Times list when it comes to fiction.
Okay, look, Rob, I'm on the Sasquatch thing. I said, look up the Sasquatch Genome Project.
One of our researchers is going to do that right now, sir.
Yeah, do that. But
I'm still talking about.
I know.
Still talking about the book, and
I know.
the claims that you're making, that Adam and Eve, basically extraterrestrials or aliens, the children of aliens, were related to aliens. There's this massive ship. What was it? 1,000 miles by
1,380.
You know, and this sounds rather hokey to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time putting any credibility behind it. This is why I asked you if this was a factual book, if this was a book of fiction, if this was a novel. I'm having a hard time connecting any dots. Because it's scattered. It's really scattered. You've got Bigfoot. You've got the Garden of Eden. You've got the different people throughout the biblical stories.
You know,
I don't know how to follow this.
Well, my thread through this has been the Book of Genesis. That all of this relates to the Book of Genesis. And it all goes back to that, whether we're talking about Satan or the aliens or everything that followed.
But I can't remember reading anywhere in the Bible where it mentions aliens.
No, it doesn't mention aliens unless you talk about different angels and how they operate in the spiritual world and affect our world. Mm-hmm. It's inferred because.
Okay.
Well, it's inferred. I tell you, it's theological speculative study, right out front in the title. And the idea is that if we're related to these people, and if they are advanced, then who are they? Who is it that stepped in the mud 400 million years ago wearing sandals? And how did they get there? Are they aliens from another galaxy, another planet somewhere? And my point is that they're from here.
Okay.
And they're from here because the Bible doesn't tell us how long Adam and Eve were in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
but the Bible does say that God created everything in 6 days, and on the seventh day He rested. Okay. So, do you believe that everything was created in 6 days, and on the seventh day He rested?
I talk about that in the Bible, and God is outside of our timeline, and He could have a creation event. Mm-hmm. Like the creation of stars, and He can move sideways in time to the next event, even though millions of years have passed. Okay?
And this is all hypothetical.
No. I mean, he can call it a day. I mean, He's outside of time. He tells us that in several different places.
But
if
He tells us this, and it's not true as it is written in the Bible, how can we take anything else that has been written in the Bible as the truth?
I don't understand where you just leapt from.
It's very simple. The truth is the truth. Facts are facts. If the beginning of the book says that everything was created in 6 days, and on the seventh day He rested, there's no inference there about Him being able to time shift, time travel, use quantum physics. It's not mentioned. So if we're going to use a lot of supposition to explain the very first chapter of the book, that means the rest of the book is fiction as well.
Okay, why?
We've got to take our final break. Don't go away. X-Zone Nation, I'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Tell me, are you a believer or are you a skeptic? Send me your emails, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. All right, what I was getting at was that in the beginning of the Bible, and the first 4 books were written by Moses, we all know this, called the Torah, it doesn't give the reader the ability to use latitudes. The Bible says God created everything in 6 days. On the 7th day He rested. Why should we say now that, well, you know, God can do this, God can do that, what we call a day, God, you know, may have taken longer to create stars, this and that. as a reader, when you start reading something and you find discrepancies in it, it taints the entire book. 9 times out of 10, people will put the book down, it goes on the shelf, and they never pick it up again. So how can we validate, without being theologists, that, well, when Moses wrote, 6 days and on the 7th he rested, well, that's not what we mean. How can we validate that?
Well, how long is a day when a day doesn't exist? How long is a day when...
But the day did exist because it was the word passed down from God to Moses.
Okay, but I'm talking about before that.
Well, I'm talking about
the event itself.
So then, why did God use the exact reference of a day then? Because if we're going to say, well, God didn't say that. Well, wait a minute.
I didn't say that.
No, I said if we are going to say that, that discredits everything.
And I don't.
So how do we validate it?
I'm not coming from that premise at all.
You seem to be making it up as you go along. Well, I don't mean that you're making the Bible up. I didn't mean that. What I mean is that you're adding to what's there to make it fit in the story.
Oh, boy, I hope not.
Well, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, that's not the case at all. Look, if you do the genealogy of Jesus back to King David, and King David back to Abraham, and Abraham back to Adam, from Genesis and Luke and Matthew, then people have figured out that from now until the time Adam emerged was about 8,500 years, approximately. Okay, and then if you say that they weren't in the garden very long, then you would have to assume that the 8,500 years plus 6 days and a day of rest is when everything happened. But you can look through the Kepler telescope 13.8 billion light years away and see light that's been traveling all that time and all that distance to us. And you say, if God created everything in 6 days, how is it?
I'm not saying that's what it says in the Bible.
I'm saying, well, exactly. If God created everything in 6 days, how is it that we can see things billions of light years away? Are the two incompatible? Is the Bible just a fairy tale then?
So are we saying that the Bible is outdated?
Oh, no, not at all. I would never say that. What I'm saying is that if you can look through the Kepler telescope 1.38 billion light years away, how do you reconcile that with the 6-day story in Genesis? And that's what I try to do in the book.
But what you're doing, in my opinion, is you're adding to the fact that we all know it's impossible that the earth and everything was created in 6 days. We all know that's a myth. We all know that's a misnomer. That's been proven scientifically over and over and over again. But to make things, or to bring possibilities into an equation to make a story fit.
Wait a minute. You're using the Bible.
Yes.
You're using the Bible, and you're saying to me, you're using it like a sword against me, and I'm trying to say, this is how it makes sense. This is how...
it's based on your interpretation, right?
Well, of course it is.
So, but what you're saying is that the way the Bible is written isn't right.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's another way of understanding how it worked. Okay? If the Bible is... what do those 6 days look like? What does 6 days look like to God when He creates everything? Okay, and if you can tie this in with the scientific principles, the creation of stars and galaxies and the universe itself, and in what God just moves to the next creation event. He can call it a day. He can call it whatever He wants. He described it to us as 6 creation events.
How do you know God's a male?
Because there's two different things. One, He tells us that He made men and women in His image, male and female. He created them.
Yes.
And so there's a sense that God is genderless.
Okay.
But there's also a sense of maleness in the fact that Jesus called him Father. And God said, "This is my Son in whom I am well pleased."
All right, so here's another question for you.
So it's a place to start from.
In the Bible, it also said, if my memory serves me correct, and God said, let us create in our image, our likeness. Who are the us? Who are the we?
The word in the Hebrew is Elohim, and it's plural.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those scriptures that theologians say lead us to the Trinity, a multi-aspect being with three minds, three parts and three minds, but there's still one being. There's an alien for you, Rob. A hive mind. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
Well, it leaves a lot to interpretation. And I can understand why now a lot of people are just, saying religion makes no sense anymore. We're not sheep anymore. We don't need a shepherd. And I think that people are just saying, look, they preach one thing, they do another. Like the churches that amass all this property, all this land. Look at the Vatican, for God's sake. And some of the major dioceses around the world. Religion would carry a lot more weight with a lot more people if all the properties were sold and all the treasures were sold, all the arts were sold, and the money given to the poor, the hungry, the needy. Because I think religion today is far from what those who began religion so many years ago.
Well, in that aspect, I agree with you, Rob. There's religion and there's relationship, and there's the institutional religion was something Jesus fought against when he was here. He was always taking the Pharisees to task about their religion and how they interpreted it and their massive wealth and greed and power.
And yet the church is one of the, the Vatican itself is one of the major and richest corporations in the world.
Part of the problem with religion, a lot of places, a lot of churches are always working to get back to the basics of the message Jesus preached. And it's hard.
Well, the Jews don't worry about that because they don't believe in Christ.
Pardon me?
I said the Jews don't worry about that because they don't believe in Christ.
Well, you were talking about the Catholic Church and the Christian religion, I thought.
I was talking religion in general.
Okay. Well,
anyway, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show tonight, and Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about this. Craig, how would you describe our guest? Wannabe. Okay. There you go. If you'd like to find out more about, let me see, Dr. Joel Graves, his website is aliensgodbible.com. I find it very hard. Like, he brought in aliens, he brought in angels, he brought in Adam and Eve, he brought in Jesus, he brought in Bigfoot, he brought in DNA, he brought in this. What was the size of this massive ship? It was so ridiculous that I didn't even write it down. It's like, come on, give it a break. I know everybody's got a book in them, and everybody wants to sell their book. But damn it, do your homework, mister. Well, another one bites the dust here on the X-Zone, and you'll find his name in the X-Zone order of woo-woos. I certainly wouldn't recommend his book. Really, I wouldn't. Exo Nation, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So what I'm saying to you out there in Radioland, which way would you rather look at the Bible? The way that makes your heart feel good? That makes you want to be a better person? Or do you want to think of a Bible telling you a story where Adam and Eve and all their descendants are extraterrestrials and Bigfoot shares the same DNA with us and blah, 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 blah? I'll be back, X Zone Nation. I know which way you're going to think. Wow. Hey, got some great news coming up in the next couple of days. Something that is going to shock each and every one of you. But no, you've learned to expect the strange, the weird, the bizarre from me, haven't you, over the years? Don't go away. We'll be back.